Miss Reynolds. My dad, Chuck Johnson, is a former Marine, and he was in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War, and he flew a helicopter during the Vietnam War. And my grandfather, Earl Johnson, which was my dad's dad, was in the Army Air Corps, which is now known as the Air Force, and he was a World War II veteran. And my grandfather has passed away, and it's been 8 years ago since he has passed, but at 92 years of age, when he would talk about his experiences, it's very heartwarming to hear all the stories that he had to share. And same thing for my dad. My dad lost his very best friend in the Vietnam War, and to this day, one of my best memories that I have was when I was 10, was my dad taking us to the Vietnam Wall and in Washington D.C. to see it, and unreal, like to actually experience that and be a part of that. But for us and like for my family, I always think of a person who serves in the military is the ultimate hero, because they sacrifice so much for us. Our America, we're the home of the land of the free, home of the brave, and I just think that for a person in the military, that is their ultimate sacrifice, and it's just amazing to see what they go through. And to this day, I'm very proud of the people in my family who are veterans.
I was actually born in Stuttgart, Germany, because I was an Army brat growing up. My dad was in the Army long before I was born. I have an older sister who was born in Germany, and then my oldest sister was born in the States. So we lived in Germany until I was almost 3, where my dad got transferred to Fort Knox, Kentucky, which actually ended up being a blessing because my dad was in a fatal car wreck in Fort Knox, and so we were close to my mom's family in Bowling Green, Kentucky. After he passed away, we moved back to Bowling Green. That's how I ended up here. And my mom got remarried a few years later to a Marine. And so I have really strong ties to both Army and Marines. I grew up going to the PX, the commissary, because I had a military ID until I was 23. The Army did a great job of taking care of me.
So my entire family is in the military, so both my grandfathers, all my uncles, my cousins, my father. So I have people who've been in the Army in World War II, Vietnam, spies in the Air Force. And the reality is we need to remember our veterans, and our veterans are important because they show us what sacrifice is, and they show us that when you sacrifice everybody, good things happen. And we need to remember what they've done for us and the freedoms that they've kept for us.
I have several family members that have been in our military of some sorts, several in the National Guard. My father-in-law flew fighter jets for the Air Force. So the military background is big in my family. I think it's very important that we remember our veterans for the ultimate sacrifice they've made for our country, for the right for us to have freedom. And it's the ultimate sacrifice for me as a person can give is for their country and for their loved ones and for everybody in the United States.
So 3 of my siblings and my dad were in the Marine Corps, and have all been overseas multiple times. So I grew up in a Marine environment and on military base up until I was in late elementary school. And it just really impacted me because I think in retrospect, I'm always surprised that 3 of my siblings joined the Marines because it's such a selfless thing to do. And I admire them for that. And my mom had to, send 3 of her kids to war. So it's a really selfless endeavor, and I appreciate them for what they've done every day.
So my dad served in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War. He was an MP, a military policeman, and he worked on training the service dogs during that time. It's really important to honor him because, he put his life on hold to serve in the Army. He didn't get started on a family or anything like that so that he could serve his country and do what needed to be done.
I'm here today to talk to you about my husband, Vince Willingham, who is a veteran. He has been in the military since 2002, and we've been a military family. I'm so proud of him. He has done 2 tours to Iraq and multiple stateside activations and trainings. And this Veterans Day, I don't just think about him, but I think of all the other military people, families that have made so many sacrifices for me. And I think it's amazing that I get to do what I love each and every day, and that my child gets to do that too because of the sacrifices that they made. So I am so truly thankful for them and what they have done so that I can do what I love every single day.
My brother Adam is a veteran of the United States Navy. He was a CV. He fought in Jalalabad, Afghanistan, and you don't realize how much you miss your brother until you can't talk to him and you can't see him face to face, and he can't tell you where he's at. When he came back home, it changed him. What he had to do, what he had to see, the lives he had to take. So when you remember Veterans Day, I think it's important to understand what these people have to go through, and then when they have to adjust back to civilian life, it's pretty tough on them, and it's pretty tough on the family having to watch them go through it. I was proud of him, I love him, and he'll never know how much he meant to me going and serving in Afghanistan.
Hey South Warren, I'm here with Bill Hartwine, who is my wife's grandfather, so my grandfather-in-law, and he is a veteran of the U.S. military, and he's agreed to do a Veterans Day interview for us, so thank you for having us here.
All right.
Tell us when you were born.
I was born in 1927 in St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, Missouri, 1927, so if I'm doing my math right, that makes you
93.
93 years old. And did you grow up in St. Louis?
Most of it, and moved to Louisville, Kentucky, and lived here 2 years, and joined the Navy when I was 17.
So you were 17 years old when you joined the Navy. How was that? Tell me about that.
Well, you had to have your parents' signature when you're 17. They won't take it. They wouldn't take you then. But so my dad reluctantly signed because I had an older brother who's over in the South Pacific on a destroyer escort, and I didn't want him to do things that I didn't do, so I had to join to keep up with him.
How much older was he than you?
He's 3 years older. He was drafted right out of high school.
So he was drafted during what war now?
World War II.
Okay. And you said he was in the Pacific?
Yes.
All right. So what branch of the military did you serve in?
I joined the Navy, and they sent me to boot camp in Sampson, New York. From Sampson, New York, I got on a train, went right to Norfolk, got off it was on a train, went on a ferry boat that took the train right to Norfolk. We got off the train, got onto a airplane, we got onto a seaplane tender, and we shipped out of Norfolk, went through the Panama Canal. The ship broke down the Panama. We went to the Pacific, picked up another ship, and was supposed to go to Wake Island. We ended up at Giwan, Samar, and that's where I stayed the rest of my service.
Is Giwan Samar, that's a Pacific island?
Yes, in the Philippines. It's in the Pacific. And it was a supply depot for the 3rd Fleet. My job there, I was in cargo security. It was a division of shore patrol. And we were supposed to watch for people stealing things and things like that. And it was a real experience for a 17-year-old. We had a concrete ship, had no engine in it. It was towed over there and docked out in the bay, and it was loaded with beer. And they had single people go out and stand guard on that boat. Only way you get up there was on a rope ladder, and when you was relieved, you pulled the ladder up. But they left me stay out there in the middle of the night, out there in the bay, and that thing bobbed up and down. I heard more noise. I was scared to death.
So you guarded that ship, the cargo on the ship?
Yes.
At night?
Yes.
In the Philippines?
Yes.
By yourself?
Yes.
17 years old.
Yes.
I bet that was a scary experience.
Right.
So what was the years that you were in the service?
I went in there in 1945. The war was just winding down. The European War was almost completely settled. But we hadn't dropped the bomb yet. They dropped the bomb in the Pacific on Japan when I was on the water when that happened. And so that was the end of combat. That's why I sent to serve where I did.
So you were on the water sailing over to the Pacific when the atomic bomb dropped on
Yes.
Japan?
Yes.
How did you guys hear the news?
Well, the captain's ship got the news, and it was come over the radio, and of course everybody was happy that we knew we we're going to be thrust right into the war. They still had the different ones who was on the islands were still fighting because they fought over there for 2 or 3 more years after the war over in the jungles because they didn't know the war was over. And luckily that was more the Marines and the Army than the sailors. But we had to haul them there and pick them up and bring them back.
So you took Marines to the islands and the Navy did?
The Navy did, yes.
And tell me that island that you were on again, or the part of the Philippines?
It was in the Giwan Samar. The small tip, the southern end of the island. There's a lot of islands over there, many islands. It was a small island that I was on.
Yeah. And how long were you in the Navy?
I was in just a little over a year and a half, and I got my legs crushed over there aboard ship.
Tell us how that happened.
I was walking duty, and they called me from one end ship to the other, and I was walking by the winch operator. He had a load on the winch, and he was waiting for transport to haul it away, and it was a steam winch, and he was playing a tune on it. He was hitting on the handle that operated the winch and letting steam out, just making a noise, playing a tune, and he hit it too far, and just as I walked by, the load hit me in the legs and crushed me again to hold the ship.
So it basically crushed both of your legs?
Yes.
So where did you go from there after that accident happened?
Well, then they put me in a fleet hospital there. I stayed there for a couple months. Then they sent me back to San Francisco, and I ended up, my last month or so was in Albany, California. Had a duty there. First was rigging cables on landing craft, and I went from that to Shore Patrol again, and then from there I went back to Great Lakes to be discharged.
All right. What would you say it was like overall to be 17 years old and go to the Pacific during World War II? Like, what would you want our teenagers at South Warren today to know about that experience?
I think really hard about it. I think that education would be being scared to death a lot. and when you're 17 years old, you think you're invincible. You don't think of that. But when you're left alone and in some situations, then you realize how you just don't know what to expect. And if I had just stayed home and got my education, I think I would have been better. But at that time, I thought it was the right thing to do because we was fighting a war to save America. This was our war, and we was fighting for us. A lot of the veterans today are coming home from wars that are nation building and things like that. That some of them were really have to take care of because they're our allies, and we have to look after them. And but others, not so much. But the veterans today coming home, there's so many that are mangled, and you have to really put in your mind why. As when World War II, you knew why.
Right.
Anybody come home, why? You knew why they were there, because they was fighting for freedom, and you don't know what freedom's like until you miss it. And the people over in the other islands, they don't have freedoms like we have. We still think today that we don't have freedoms here, but we do. But we're losing them. We should really fight for them. It's very important.
Yeah.
And if you talk to some of the veterans, I think they'd tell you the same thing. They're all proud of what they've done, because what they've done should be proud of, even though it wasn't for our country, it's for somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable what they would give sacrifice their self for other people. And I think it's the greatest country in the world, I'll tell you. I
Yeah.
don't think you find another better one. And but I know we have a lot of disagreements, but I said we still got the best people.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your service, and on behalf of South Warren, thank you for doing this interview and letting us see what it was like to be a 17-year-old in World War II. And we just want to wish you the best and everything. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.